back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I am here today to do one of my favourite videos of the year, and that is to do my absolute favourite books of 2018. Of course, there were loads of books that I read this year, and loads of them could easily have made my favourites list because I had so many good ones, but as always, I had to choose the very, very best. So there's not really a particular order, but if I had to choose an order to put these books into, this would be it. So let's get started. I'm just going to tell you quickly why I love the book, and also hopefully I'll link all the reviews down below for these books if I've done them. I think there's only one that I've not already reviewed, so you can see that down there if you're interested in checking out like the full length review. But let's just get started because this is one of my favourite videos to do of the year. First up, I had some non-fiction that made my best of list for this year, so I'm going to talk about that first. The first one of those was Into Thin Air. This book was a book all about exploring Everest and the hardships that can happen on an Everest expedition, which is very, very dangerous. It was really, really heartwarming and horrible all at once. There were some great moments and some really terrifying moments, and of course it is non-fiction, so it's based in reality, but one of the best non-fictions I've ever read for sure. Very, very, very good, and I gave it 5 stars. So of course that one had to make my top list of the year. Next up, I have a slightly cheaty one because it's actually 2 books and they're kind of a duology or companion, I suppose they are. And these are both, again, non-fiction books by Stephen Fry this time. That is Mythos and Heroes. I actually audiobooked both of these and I completely fell in love with them. They are my first sort of proper Stephen Fry reads, because although I've listened to him narrate lots of other books, I haven't actually read any of his own books until now, and I really enjoyed these. I thought they were utterly fantastic. They're all about Greek mythology. They tell you an awful lot about the gods and how many of the mythology stories that we know today came to be, and a lot of the kind of interconnections between the stories that you don't always understand if you study just one. So they were excellent, and Mythos is mostly about the gods, and then the Heroes is like the demigods. Really, really wonderful books. Completely recommend the audiobook, and I gave both of them 5 stars, so they had to make the list as well. Now on to the science fiction and fantasy elements. The first one that makes my list for 2018 is The Tiger's Daughter. This one was a really surprising book for me. I'd heard good things before I went into the book, which is obviously why I picked it up in the first place, but I didn't anticipate quite how much I would just fall in love with the characters. It was fun. It was a really good fantasy story based around the idea of people who live sort of on the plains, and they have a sort of tribe out there where they work together. And there's also the Empress and her people, so they're quite different, but actually the 2 cultures collide quite a lot in the story. The story itself was good. There's an LGBTQ representation, and I really, really enjoyed this book. So again, if you want to know more, check out my full review, but I highly recommend this one. Next up, I have another slightly cheaty one because, again, it's 2 books, but they are part of a series, and I read them back to back, so to be honest, they almost read like one book to me, and that is Scythe and Thunderhead, which I just fell in love with this past year. I've actually never really read Neil Shusterman, I don't think, before. I just heard of him and I hadn't really kind of looked into what he does, and I don't know, something about the covers of these ones just pulled me in. It's a YA dystopian series set in a time period where everyone can live forever, so people have to be killed off by scythes. And it is fantastic. There is a lot of corruption in the society, there is a lot of backstabbing, manipulation. It's really fun, very easy to read, and certainly a series I'm super excited to continue with. So I recommend both of these really highly, and I can't wait for the next one to come out next year. Next on my list is, of course, one of my all-time favourites, and that is the new Becky Chambers book, although it's no longer really new. This is an ARC copy, but it is Record of a Spaceborne Few, and this is the 3rd one in her kind of Wayfarers universe, I suppose. I absolutely love all the books in this series so far. I've been really enjoying the way that she plays with different aliens and interconnecting societies up in space. She just has a very positive outlook on space, and although things do go wrong in her stories and characters do get tested, it's very much a hopeful series. There's a lot of positives from the aliens and the creatures and the characters, and I just love the world, and I think she explores a lot of big ideas in a really great way. so I highly recommend this as well. Next up, I actually have a self-published book that got onto my favourites, and I'm really happy about that, and that is Sufficiently Advanced Magic by Andrew Rowe. I just loved this book. I think maybe it was a case of I just went into it with no expectation because I had never heard of the author and I didn't know what I was going to get, and I fell in love with this. It was so good. It was one of the finalists for last year's SBFBO, and that's how I came to read it, and I just think it's perfect if you like fantasy. It's got a lot of elements of Harry Potter, it's got a lot of elements of fighting and battle with epic creatures and powers. It's got some really cool magic systems, some fun characters who also have some interesting quirks, like there is discussion of mental health in these books, and I just think it was excellent. So I really recommend this, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next book I have is the second one in a series, and that is Wondersmith. This book I thought was so much better than the first one. I enjoyed the first one, but this one I just felt was so immersive and fun. It's a children's series, definitely inspired by Harry Potter, but certainly its own thing. It's got a character called Morrigan Crow who goes into the world of Nevermore and discovers her powers, and she has to try and uncover what she can do. And I'm not going to say any more than that, but it's pretty awesome what she can do. And she's a very cool character. The world itself is absolutely beautifully described. It's so immersive and fun, and I thoroughly recommend this series for anyone who's a kid or an adult alike, because I have loved it, and I've recently bought it for my younger brother as well for Christmas, because I know he's going to love the second one as much as he loved the first. He absolutely adored it. So yeah, highly recommend this. Next up, I actually have one I've not reviewed just yet because I only recently finished it, and that is this one, The Ember Blade. Again, this is an ARC copy, but you can see the title there. I loved this book. This is good old-fashioned classic fantasy, done so well and so beautifully and perfectly. The characters in this book are fantastic. They all work together and have conflicts that make sense. They are just a group of heroes who are very unlikely. To be honest, they're not even heroes to start off with. They just kind of have to evolve into that. It is very stereotypical. I don't think, having said that, that it is predictable. There's a definite difference there. So although there are things that you've probably seen in other books in this, they all feel unique in this book because they're done so well, and Chris Wooding has done an excellent job of just shaping a really fun world, a good concept, and a lot of great characters who I am so rooting for as they go through the series. So really love this book again, and I highly recommend checking this one out, especially if you like just good old-fashioned fantasy, because this will probably become an instant classic, I feel like. Next up, my second place book for this year is this one, Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This was actually my first Tchaikovsky book, and it was one that I just fell head over heels in love with. I don't know exactly what it was, but I think it was the voice of the main character. This is set throughout the time of war, and that is something I do not usually care about at all, but this character that we're following is fantastic. She is called Emily Marshwick, and she is a character who just completely... I just related to her as we were reading the book. I just found that her actions and her ideas made sense. She was sensible, she was clever, she thought outside the box, she did things that other people wouldn't have thought to do and inspired people. It's a really heartbreaking book. It really doesn't shy away from showing the tragedies of war and just how horrible it can be. There is magic, although it is more of a background element. It's certainly not the main focus of this book, but the character is so well done that I just can't help but highly recommend this. So do check this one out for sure. And then finally, my top spots for this year actually go to the same author, and they're part of the same series, although you can read them in any order because they are standalone books. And that is After Atlas by Emma Newman and Before Mars, also by Emma Newman. So these books I completely fell in love with, as I thought I would, because Emma Newman has always been one of my favourite authors since I started reading her books, and Planetfall series has been so fantastic so far, and of course these books were no exception to that rule. It continues the series in excellent ways. Each book has its own main character, and although there are very subtle links between the three so far, they're not major and you don't have to have read them in a certain order. You can just jump in wherever you want and just enjoy the story, which is exactly what I did and exactly what I love about the series. It's so involved. Again, there's so much mental health discussed in the books. Each of them has their own quirks and their own characters, and these characters feel so relatable and realistic because they feel fleshed out and researched. They feel like they are raw characters who've been written into the books. And Emma Newman is just one of my all-time favourite authors. I think she's fantastic. I highly recommend checking out all of her books, but these two got my top spots for 2018 because they were just great, to be honest. So that is everything I'm going to do in this video to let you know all of my favourites. They're all the books that I gave 5 stars to this year. I didn't give out too many this year, as you guys can see, but I absolutely loved them. There were a lot of books that I could easily have mentioned here, so I am going to do an honorary mention video very soon, so look out for that coming up. And I will be doing so many sort of end of the year videos really soon, so do look out on my channel for those as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Do let me know which of your books was your favourite, which you read in 2018. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.